Welcome back. There's a lot that we can learn from the success of a startup, but there's also a ton that we can learn from the startup failures. And Quibi, boy, is that a 2020 dumpster fire of failure. There's so many things that went wrong with it. Before we dive into some of the things that went wrong, it's worth pointing out that there's a number of things that they got right. Quibi was able to innovate in a number of different areas. They had an amazing founding team with a lot of industry experience, and they were able to scale really quickly despite their failure. We're going to dig into some of the things that Quibi got wrong and some of the ways that you can learn from their failures to make your startup a success. In terms of some of the things that they got right, they had an amazing founding team. Jeffrey Katzenberg was running Walt Disney Studios, and Meg Whitman was running Hewlett Packard. Both amazing companies with incredible depth. The combination of creative vision for the content and technical know-how in terms of building software and building software companies was an incredible combination. They actually had the elements that I like to see, which is the combination of design and technology merged together. They also had an amazing product vision, the notion that TV is changing and that people are looking to consume different types of media. The 30-minute video that you're used to watching on the couch is no longer optimized for the mobile lifestyle. And so the notion that you could have 10-minute short bites of video optimized for mobile was a really spot-on observation from a product vision standpoint. And the third piece is technology. They had a strong technical team that was able to execute on a lot of the technology and a lot of their technical vision. It gave them some differentiation and some ability to penetrate and build quality mobile applications. So on paper, they have a lot of the core pieces that you need. A core founding team, a great product vision, and they were timely in terms of bringing their product to the market at a time when it was likely needed. So what went wrong? So when you take a look at Quibi, it's broken up into two parts. The first is it's a platform for new content. They developed a number of new technologies that acted as a platform, a foundation for hosting a brand new set of content. And so they have that platform component, and then they have the content itself. The content is brand new videos, brand new content they were producing. So when it comes to content and platform, you really have to start with one. It's incredibly difficult to both build a brand new platform and build the content for that platform. Quibi had a unique technology that allowed them to pivot the screen and show a unique view of the movie or the video experience in each orientation. And this was really novel. It created some creative opportunities for directors and producers, but this also created a problem for them in terms of building that audience. Because of this unique feature, they couldn't easily license existing content. They had to create their own content. They had a brand new platform with some unique features, but no content for that platform and no audience for that platform. And they didn't know which way to start. It's like having the chicken and egg at the same time. It's much easier to start with one. If you look at Netflix, Netflix started with the platform. They built their platform and they licensed initially DVDs and existing content from the studios. Netflix didn't try to create original content, they licensed content. Disney, on the other hand, didn't build a platform. They built content, and they spent decades building content before they released their content platform. And because of this, they're able to build audience. You can either build audience through your platform, YouTube's audience, and you're watching this right now because YouTube has a platform. They have that audience already there. And so if someone produces content, it's easier to find it there. On the other hand, some producers produce content and they don't build the platform. They rely on others to build that platform for them. In either scenario, you're generating audience from one direction or the other. You're either creating that platform to support audience or you're creating amazing content to support audience. If you build content and platform at the same time, there is no audience. And that's actually exactly what happened to Quibi. They were able to build an amazing platform and they were able to build amazing content. But the problem is there was no audience. No one had discovered their content. No one had discovered their platform. And so it was really difficult and really expensive to build that momentum. They would have had to keep going for years and years to build up that audience momentum to have any notion of success. If they had been a pure content play, they could have licensed their content to Amazon, Disney, Apple, Netflix, other content platforms, and built loyalty for the content in the new series that they were creating in short form content. If they were building a platform, they could have opened up the platform for other content creators and built that audience without spending billions of dollars on custom content creation. Instead, they tried to do both at the same time, and ultimately there was no audience there. Apple is actually having a very similar problem with their Apple TV Plus platform, where they're trying to build both the platform and the content. And even for the world's richest, most valuable company in the world, this is proving to be incredibly complicated. They've been able to build a platform, but they've had to give away that platform for 1-year free trial subscriptions. That 1-year renewal is coming up, so we're going to see how many of those customers actually convert to paying subscribers for Apple TV Plus. But there's a lot that Apple can learn from Quibi's failure. Building both the content platform and the content itself at the same time is incredibly difficult. The second core problem to Quibi is that they scaled before they validated. The number one thing you want to do as a startup is preserve your capital until you really know that your startup is working and the business metrics are getting you where you need to go. Quibi, on the other hand, was spending money hand over fist on Super Bowl commercials, on hiring, on staffing, on scaling their technology, and bringing on more and more content partners. They had over 8,000 episodes lined up and no audience to actually watch them. They were scaling so fast in terms of their partnerships, in terms of the brands, in terms of the episodes and content creation, that they hadn't had enough time to build and vet out their business model. For any other startup, they would have weaved and turned and experimented with their business model, experimented with conversions, and really figured out how to get customers to love their content and keep coming back for more. They could have had a hit with only 1 or 2 pieces of content that were really hitting it with their audience and building virality. On mobile devices, people like to share, they like to comment, they like to interact, and Quibi hadn't built in some of those features, actually inhibiting social sharing on Twitter, Facebook, or other social media platforms. So if you saw a clip, you wanted to share it with a friend, you wanted to make it more social, it was actually very difficult to do that. If you scale too fast, your team is too big, your infrastructure starts to grow too fast, and you're not actually ready for that scale. By scaling so fast, they actually had a lot of overhead that slowed them down in other areas. Their business model could have gone in one of 100 different directions, but because they had complexity in their business model, complexity with their partners, it made it much more difficult to pivot as a large company. They should have been small and nimble. If they had kept their team small, they would have had $1 billion. That would have been years and years for them to iterate, fine-tune their model, and actually gain subscribers, people who were loyal to the platform and loyal to what they were trying to do. But because they scaled so fast, they had a much higher bar for what they needed to achieve in a very short span of time. Jeff and Meg are incredible founders. They had managed to secure over 4.5 million people to download the application, but 90% of those people ended up canceling their subscription once their subscription time was up. Out of that 4.5 million people, less than 60,000 people ended up subscribing to the service, which resulted in revenue of about $500,000 a month, but nowhere near where they needed for profitability and sustainability. If they had taken their $1 billion of funding and focused on just the content or just the platform, they could have built an amazing studio with amazing content and then spent years building out that platform once they had enough loyalty in their audience base, or built an amazing platform to compete with YouTube or other content platforms like TikTok, where other people are creating the content and they're really building that audience loyalty. Either way, it's a chicken and egg problem, but focusing on one of those aspects really helps the other one be more successful. The third key reason is financial. As a startup, you have to manage your cash flow and your burn rate. And Meg and Jeffrey had tons of operator experience, but they had them at large companies. They hadn't gone through that early growth phase of a startup. In the first early years, it's typical to have very little revenue, and getting that product market fit, that traction, takes a lot of time. Launching a product within Disney or launching a product within Hewlett Packard is very different, because both of those companies have momentum, they have audience, and they have embedded marketing teams that can really push those new products to a very large audience. With a brand new startup, you have to start from scratch, and you have to lay the foundation and build those building blocks year over year, step over step. And that just takes time. They weren't patient. You really need to nurture that startup and give it that time and experience to allow it to grow. Quibi had a bunch of technically strong elements in the product. They had a lot of strong things that could have taken them to the next level, but they weren't patient. There's a lot of lessons here for startups to learn and focus on and study in terms of their own success, in terms of building a two-sided marketplace, focusing on one side of the marketplace and waiting till you have the right business metrics in order to succeed and scale that business. Not pre-optimizing their technology or pre-optimizing their scale before they're actually ready to scale, and not overspending on customer acquisition before you have your conversion metrics in such a way that you can actually profit from that customer acquisition. I'm Greg Raiz. I talk about entrepreneurship, startups, technology, and design. I'll catch you on the next one.